friends, so it's the end of May. I wanted to show you a bit of a garden update with where I'm at. We got a Tiki coming over here. Hey, sweetheart. Hey, darling. I've got these 3 hens that I've been letting out for a couple hours when I'm out here some days. And they're staying real close. They're good girls. So we'll see how it goes. Anyways, I wanted to show you that this does indeed work, this system. Now these here, I just planted maybe 2 weeks ago. Maybe 2 weeks ago. I don't know. Time is so hard. And I know things look junky, but you know what? I'd rather have food and have it looking junky than not have food. And also, you know, everything's a work in progress. So you're just going to have to deal. And, you know, we don't have any covenants or anything. I specifically didn't want that when we were looking for property. And I've got lots of work to do, and I'm going to share some of the work I got to do. I've been having these problems where I can only be outside for 2 or 2.5 hours lately before my throat really starts swelling on me, and I just have to come in. And yeah, I will link to my EpiPen post below, and I'll also link to my winter sewing article, which has got lots of pictures, lots of things that I've tried. So this here, you know, use what you have. Use what you can. Obviously, if you've got covenants and all those sorts of things, then, and if you actually care about what your gardening area or your outside looks like, then, you know, do something that looks attractive to you and that, you know, isn't going to get you into trouble. Here, you know, we're back in the woods. Like, the road is way up there. It's a football field up there in distance. And yeah, I've got, here's just one thing I got to do. I've got to put a gate up here. I'm going to move it from a chicken area that I did have a gate on, and move that here. And then this here, I'm going to put back across after I get the gate up, probably, because we have deer pressure here real bad. So this here does indeed work. You can see I've got a few peppers up here. See, we got a few peppers up here. We've got some dill that dried out and died. I'm not going to use these sizes anymore because I just can't keep up. I can't hardly keep up and keep them damp enough in the sun, and sometimes even in the shade. But I've got some green onions up here. Got some various squash over here. I've already transplanted some zucchini. We've got cucumber. One thing that I use a lot, and I have used a lot with great success in starting my own plants, is just the clear plastic cups. We've got some cabbage and kale here and some broccoli, which you know, we eat sauerkraut and we eat a lot of broccoli. This is gonna probably, if cabbage and broccoli don't do okay for me this year, I'm not gonna try anymore. I just give up. These here are tomato seedlings. One tray is cherry tomatoes and the other tray is non-cherry tomatoes, and some cucumbers back there as well. These are all seeds that I saved. The cucumbers are seeds that I saved as well. These are not all of the plants that I've grown thus far. And yeah, so obviously things are a mess for me here. Last year, the weeds got really out of control. And they all went to seed everywhere in the garden. So I had to figure out something. And so I'm going to share with you what I'm trying, what doesn't seem to be working, and how it isn't working and how it is working. So I didn't want to use greenhouse plastic. I will link to this below. This is really good for mulch beds. The problem in the garden is that I have raised beds here. Now, if you have good soil, you don't have to, you know, build raised beds. You can just mound up the soil in your lines. Now, my husband is the landscaper, my husband is the handyman. I don't care how things look. I just want food, and I want function, and I don't want to have to do a lot of work. So he actually, in the next couple weeks or so, is going to have to go get me a bunch of sawmill mulch, because what I have down here, I was hoping it wouldn't have much in the way of weed seeds in it, but it does. I'm having some weed problems. As you can see, I've also I planted Jerusalem artichoke in my garden years ago, and the first 2 years it did nothing, and now it's growing. So I've transplanted to different areas, but it's still down here. It's even escaped from the garden back there, which I want it growing outside the garden, because it just grows and I don't do anything to make it grow. It's food. I ferment the Jerusalem artichokes, and they're really great chopped up on a salad, on a weed salad. Quite frankly, I'll also link to my foraging video as well. And so I put this greenhouse plastic, I had it all over this area, okay? So I've been working out here since February in the garden, when I'm able to. And as you can see, my pea plants are happy. But so this greenhouse plastic is not good for raised beds, because the water just goes off to the side. My plants that I had already transplanted, where I had them, had some like in the plastic, they got all dried out and everything. And I did have here in this area here, I had Egyptian walking onions and garlic. And as you can see, I tried to pull it all out, and apparently I missed a bunch, because there's a bunch coming up, and that's fine, because I don't have to do anything. That's food for me. As you can see, I've put a lot of fabric down out here, and old clothes that were mine, that haven't been washed in toxic laundry fabric or laundry products, of course. And I'm liking that a lot better. But like I said, I need my husband to get the sawmill mulch. So that's what I'm doing instead. So I cut that up. And here, obviously, I've still got bare soil where, the weeds are going to come up. Even if even if there aren't a lot of seeds. But you can actually see potentially right now the weed seeds literally falling from the sky, which I've mentioned before in previous videos. I mean, look. I mean, I've got just piles of seeds here that have fallen from the trees. So weeds are a huge problem here, so I need to address that. Now, a huge issue that I've been addressing here since February is the tree roots. So we live in a woods, and this here is obviously a sunny spot, but the tree roots are just, oh man, I've been working on them for months. And I also tilled for like a month of last year, basically, pulling them out, because they are huge tree roots, and lots of small ones as well. So I don't want them stealing the water and the nutrients, because they will, and they do. So there's always something. And I've tried growing in planters and such, but when we have the droughts, which we've had in recent years over the summer, I can't keep up just with these. Not even all of these. I didn't even have all of these last year, and I couldn't keep up with all of them. I had to pull my onions last year, because I couldn't keep up with having to water everything in containers. So raised bed gardening in containers, container gardening isn't for me with the amount of food that I need to produce. At the same time, of course, I've got weeds growing everywhere outside of the garden, and there are some inside the garden that I'll keep around here, like plantain. I eat plantain in my salads. I dehydrate it and use it for weed powder. And then also I use it medically. I use it on wasp stings. I use it you know, otherwise on my skin. So there's a lot of plantain here, and that's okay actually with me. And I've also got, there's a lady's thumb in here. I eat a lot of lady's thumb as well. And I also store lady's thumb. I'll link to my pesto recipe as well. Hopefully you can still hear me with the wind picking up a little bit. But I put these weeds in my pesto. And I've also got wild lettuce growing here and there outside the garden. But there was some wild lettuce growing in here last year. Dandelion got, oh man, look at all of these weeds that have come up around my dandelion here. Here's my dandelion. Oh man, like these here are just driving me nuts. I don't like having grass in here. But you know, I've got chicory growing here and there. I try to be, you know, understanding of all of my limitations. I need to just switch these out. But as you can see, I've already got transplants. Oh, this guy, I need, well, no, maybe not. The temperatures look like they're going to be pretty warm. So I've already transplanted some cucumbers and some onions as well. And yes, I transplant them smaller than I'm supposed to. I do everything I'm not supposed to do just to try it and see if it works. And a lot of times it does work. Sometimes it doesn't. I'm having problems this year with cutworms. Never had a problem with cutworms before. So we generally don't have toilet paper or paper towel rolls, but I do keep some around just in case. And so I had a few. So I need to do more with the cutworms. A lot of things just withered and died, and but many were cut down with cutworms. So I'm going to have to address that this year. When I transplant, as you can see, I've got to work here too. I've literally tilled the whole area of the garden thus far, except an area over here. I've got lemon balm I got to dig out still. As you can see, I'm just putting down whatever I can. You know, I've got fabric up in our loft that I'm never going to use all of that in my life. So yeah, I've been putting some down here. These are just, you know, the plastic fence posts that you can get. We had a zillion of them. And I've been, so we planted thousands of dollars of trees and bushes in 2020. And we also planted some in 2018 and 2019. And I spent hours upon hours upon hours upon hours of research ensuring that we were getting things that would be acclimated to our environment, that would be most likely to succeed regardless, and almost everything died. We got a minimal number of blueberries, and that's it. I think there are maybe a few blueberry bushes that are still alive, and maybe 3, I think, elderberry bushes. Otherwise, all of the berries that I've been getting in recent years have been from wild blackberry. And I've got a video up on when I'm harvesting them as well. But you can see, obviously here, I don't like to have bare soil, but I'm doing the best I can. I've got these chronic health issues because I trusted the experts and I listened to the experts. And yes, it was 2012 when I woke up to that, but you guys, I shouldn't even be alive. I have an article up, I'll link to it. I should not be alive. Because I've literally overdosed on so many medications it's been many years since I've taken any pharmaceuticals. I've used one EpiPen since we moved in 2018, in May of 2018, and that's the only pharmaceutical I've taken since then, I believe. I may have been on Mirapex still when we moved in, maybe, but I was off of that in 6 months if I was still on it then. I don't remember for sure. I may have been on that still. But otherwise, you know, that's not so bad considering the number of times my throat has closed on me, and the number of times I've been on anaphylaxis still. And the fact that, you know, I used to take over 75 pills a day. I was a legal drug addict, which is what is desired of us. You know, they don't want us to think about things. So obviously, you know, I've got tilled here. I've got, as you can see, a bunch of peppermint here. Do not plant peppermint or lemon balm in your garden. And look at that clover there. Wow, that is some serious clover. I'll have to harvest that and cut it up and give it to the chickens that are inside. But this area here, I'm going to dig up the peppermint. I'm going to move it outside the garden. And then I will be putting down that landscape fabric in this area and not planting this area this year, just because, you know, I've got one down here, and we eat a lot, or we drink a lot of peppermint tea. But, excuse me, we drink a lot of peppermint tea, but I don't want it in my garden. It'll grow outside the garden just fine. So there's no reason for me to have the garden space taken up by something that will grow outside the garden just fine. We have heavy clay soil that has also been compacted. So we have, and obviously we live in a woods, so we have different considerations in this garden than, for example, when we lived in a town. We've got a lot more insects here, both beneficial and non-beneficial. We are living in a climate that is constantly changing, and it's certainly not my fault, and it's not your fault either, but that is the world in which we're living in, and we have to, and you know, just accept it. The peas that I plant are Alaskan peas, and this pea variety is fantastic. I always tend to start too many peas. I soak them for a few days and you know, and rinse and everything, and that makes such a huge difference in their germination rate. As you can see, I've already got them. We've already got some flowers on them, and these will actually grow quite high. Potentially as tall as doubling the height of these plastic of my fence posts. But the thing is, I would love to have, you know, permanent trellis in here, but that's just not possible because I've got a till, if not mechanically by a hand tiller thingy. So there's that. I mean, there's so much, you know, that I've always got to do in the garden. Whoops, looks like we got, this fell over down here. Stay. All right, so with another thing, with that in mind, as far as how much I've got to do in the garden. By the way, obviously my garlic is amazing. Here my garlic is already starting to grow scapes. So I thought this would be an early spring this year, and it's even earlier than last year. You probably already noticed here the mess that I have up here because of the failure here of my garden post. We have deer pressure, so you know, we have this very tall fence here accordingly. So I've been, you know, gradually digging a hole here and digging a hole here, put a new fence post in. We've got some old cedar. The new cedar wood that you go buy today does not have rot resistance any more than the typical wood that you buy at the store. So I would not recommend spending money on cedar wood today unless you can find some random person who has some old cedar that they bought before 2020, because I've got cedar posts from where we planted, you know, trees and bushes and tried to keep out deer that I'm cutting down and putting up here. And I'm going to gradually add more because these are rotting. These old ones are rotting. But this fencing and the fence posts are all from those areas where we had planted trees and bushes and they all died. These plastic pots are from Bootstrap Farmer, and these are all from when I was tilling in this area up here where I've got garlic, or where I had garlic and Egyptian walking onions. Got some Egyptian walking onions growing here. Doing a good little job. Good job, plants. So proud of you. You know, there's actually research about plants that they can sense intentions and energy, and some people actually refer to them as stationary animals. So I do try to encourage them. If nothing else, well then, you know, I'm entertaining to God because of my insanity, or I'm entertaining to myself. So I did have, more is coming up. Yarrow, I did have yarrow growing in here. I had some other perennials growing here and there in the garden intentionally, but there are things that grow so easily. So the yarrow, I pulled a bunch and I didn't even transplant it, honestly. I just threw it in a pile, and it's elsewhere, and it's growing just fine. Dave is my honey. He's the other half here. See, look at all of these seeds. See what I'm talking about, you guys? Look at all of these seeds. These are all seeds. Look. There's no way that I can prevent weed seeds from coming in the garden. Look at all that. Look at all that, guys. It's crazy. But my yarrow here is obviously insisting on growing, so I keep trying to pull it. But I've also got all these weed seeds here still. Yay. You know, if you like it, it's not a weed. You know, like plantain for me in some areas is not a weed. In some areas, plantain is a weed to me. Dandelion in some areas is a weed to me. Grass is always a weed to me. We don't, for, you know, someone who has a husband who part of his living is mowing, I am not a fan of grass, and he's not actually either, by the way. He's very good at dealing with grass, with mowing grass and everything, but he's not actually a fan of grass either. We would not have planted grass here if we didn't have to on our septic area per the health department. Gentleman. I'll call him a gentleman. But as you can see, you know, you got to use what you have. If you can get a delivery of sawmill mulch or anything like that for a reasonable price or for free, you know, and you know the source, then, you know, do it. The sawmill mulch that I'm referring to is just the bark, and it's great stuff. I don't think I have any out here right now. You know, before I tilled, I pulled a bunch of it. A lot of this here we had rabbits previously, and this was all from the rabbits. I don't think I have any sawmill mulch down in here right now that I can show you. I do not. But I will be putting, you know, fabric down here. I've got some, you know, thinner strips of landscape fabric that I'll probably go ahead and put down as in the rows, so that I can reserve the fabric itself for around actual plants. And then I'm hoping that if I, you know, stay on top of the weeds and pull them, that I will get that issue under control this year, so that it's not as bad in future years. But the thing is that I know what's coming at some point again, and that is more wildfire smoke, because smoke cometh before the Lord. And it's very difficult for me when there is wildfire smoke, and it impacted the entire state here last year. The wildfire smoke, for I know at least one market garden farmer who had to donate hundreds of watermelons because their watermelons all ripened at the same time due to the shade that was cast from the wildfire smoke. So we have to all just expect challenges. Now, I wanted to mention another thing to you, and that is just to do your best, and also this is going to be faith-based. If you're not of the same faith than I do, I love you. Ask whatever entity you want. Ask the universe if you want. But last year I had a couple of containers, actually I have 3 containers up there along the fence of cucumbers, and I trellised them on the fence. One of them ended up covered in aphids, and I've never had aphid problems before, ever, anywhere. And we lived in northern Indiana. We've lived I have gardened in a town, I've gardened in a city, I've gardened in, obviously I've gardened here, I've gardened on the other side of southern Indiana in a woods, and I've gardened growing up surrounded by fields, by agriculture, mainstream agriculture, and everything's different everywhere. Microclimates are different, soil is different, pests are different, but I'd literally never seen an aphid in my life. And one of my cucumber plants was covered in aphids. And of course I looked online and there was information for natural addressal of them. But I asked in my spirit, Lord, guide me. How should I address this? And I don't hear voices, okay? But I felt sort of in my spirit, okay, just leave it be. I created nature, just leave it be. And so I said to myself, okay, well, if I'm supposed to get food from this cucumber plant, then I will get food from this cucumber plant. I will just leave it to God. And so I did, and within a couple weeks, the aphids were gone. The beneficial insects had addressed them for me. Nature did its work, and I didn't have to do anything. I got lots of cucumbers out of it. So the cucumber that I plant is lemon cucumber, and this I think will be the 4th or 5th year growing them here. I save them. I save the seeds every year. Cucumbers and tomatoes, I save the seeds every year. I don't really care if they cross-pollinate. Well, the cucumbers don't cross-pollinate because I only plant this one type of cucumber from the same seeds every year because they are so acclimated here to our environment that those cucumbers, I will link to a video I posted a year ago about why I seed save over a year ago, showing those cucumber plants and those cucumbers, because those cucumbers that I've saved the seeds of for 4 or 5 years straight, I don't water them and they take over the garden. That's one reason why I have so many fences up, because I know my cucumbers are going to take over the garden again this year, and we're going to have tons of cucumbers because I planted so many seeds. And I'm going to succession plant. I'm going to plant more cucumber seeds. I planted a lot of tomatoes. You already saw those. Bell peppers aren't doing so well with germination, but they also dried out, so there's that. I'm surprised that there are any bell pepper seedlings growing right now. There's also one farmer that I buy, one farmer in particular that I buy plant starts from so that I could get some things in the garden from her greenhouse sooner, so I could get food going sooner. So I'll be buying in May some plants from her: tomatoes, bell peppers, basil. Tomatoes, bell peppers, and basil. I think that's all. But I plant the things that are working that we eat. Number one, plant what you eat. So I eat peas. I ferment the peas, and fermented peas are amazing. Once my peas are done, or I start pulling them, then I replace the peas. I've got 2 lines of peas here. I'll replace them with beans, probably Kentucky something or another beans. Actually, I've got 3 rows of peas. That one over there, so the one over there has 2 rows in 1 row. This one actually has 2 rows here and behind the garlic. And then I've got just 1 row here of peas. So I'll actually probably, once I get done over here, sooner rather than later, I'll get my bean seeds soaked so they're sprouting, and then I'll get them in the ground here. And with my beans, then I will move probably some of the cloches over to them. I love doing the no transplant winter sowing, but when you have a garden with soil full of weed seeds, you get a lot of weeds growing up along with your plants as well. So, and my zucchini, I'm going to try transplanting zucchini as well. And so there's not a ton of variety that I'm growing. Eggplant, I'll grow eggplant as well. Not growing a ton of variety. Basil, we use tons of basil. But I'm growing what has a track record of success for me. So if you are new to growing, then I would recommend growing, obviously only trying to grow what you actually eat. It's kind of silly to grow things that you've never tried or whatever when you're just starting out growing, in my opinion. Obviously, you can do whatever you want. I'm not telling you what to do. But I would grow only what you already eat, and I would try, a variety of different things. But just a few plants of each and see how it goes. Regardless of whether you're an experienced gardener or not, know that you're going to have struggles. Know that you're going to have pests. Know that things are hard. Things are not going to go as planned. Oh, watermelon. I'll plant my watermelon. I saved my watermelon seeds from last year as well, from the watermelon that did grow here. I don't do as well with watermelon, so I won't try to grow as many. I've also got a few cantaloupe. I think a couple of these might be cantaloupe down here. I'm not entirely certain. Oop, it's starting to sprinkle. All right, I got to get my camera in. Hopefully all of this yammering has given you some information and thoughts on, what you can try, confidence in knowing that you will fail at some of the things that you try to garden. But hey, this is amazing therapy. Growing plants from seeds are little miracles. I mean, these guys here, I'm going to get a ton of peas just from one little pea. It's amazing, what you get just from one little pea. So I'll stop waxing poetic about the miracle of seeds and leave you to it. Please check out the links below. I will link to lots of things. Non-toxic health.